Are you excited? You're not excited, are you? It's okay, it's been a long day, I understand now. I appreciate your patience. We've been here a while, you know. It's okay, that's fine, don't worry. This is called not valid unless signed. We'll get into why in a second, hopefully. I'm Faris, that's not important for now. Are you guys all good so far? Anything you've seen, enjoyed, learnt something new? Have there been a lot of conversations about technology? Have there? Have there? Right, well, let's talk a bit about that. And I've got a timer, that's good. It's very official. Wait, I'm using this thing to click? What do you reckon? It worked? Okay, I'll leave this alone. Right, good, excellent, this will be fun. I am going to very quickly, but not by talking too quickly, whoever couldn't understand before, I'm going to rapidly, rather than fast, rapidly process through these topics. Technology, fear, identity, signatures, trust, networks, and thanks in 16 minutes and 42 seconds. You'll know where I am in the presentation because there's signposting. So if you get bored, imagine it's nearly at the end. Okay? All right, it's going to be okay, don't worry everybody. Let's start talking about technology, shall we? This is how lots of really bad presentations start. What you do is you go, oh, this word, the Webster's definition of this word is blah, 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 blah. Who cares? However, it does occur to me that everybody talking about technology today was talking about widgets and software and APIs and technology that's fundamentally driven by Moore's law and therefore has a tendency to exponentiate. That kind of technology, that's the kind of stuff we've been talking about today, isn't it? I think it's important to reframe this conversation because technology isn't some magical new thing. Moore's law is a magical new thing, and that's different. It isn't the same thing. You shouldn't conflate the two. Technos logia, study of art. That's not what it means, though. That's the etymology of the word, not what it means. Don't be confused between the two things. Because meaning is culturally derived, right? This needs to have audio on it. It's important. See, what I thought I'd try and do, can you hear that? Is it going through the speakers? Oh, exciting, this will be fun. So, I wanted to understand what this T means, because it means something specific, in my opinion, a specific culturally derived definition of the word, because words only mean things in reference to culture and how everyone understands them. So I made a thing, and the thing, I think, encapsulates what I think the word here means, and then I'll talk about why that's not right for a bit. See, it's not very loud, is it? Anyone? No? Nothing? Disappointing. I'm just hacking the system a little bit for you. So that's what I think technology means in all your heads. It plays to a late 90s jungle track from the 90s, from the UK, called Prisoners of Technology. That's partially relevant. It has robots in it, and widgets, and software, and satellites, and things that seem cool in the 80s. It's not really the only thing technology is. And so I thought to reframe this conversation and not be kind of, oh, I'd make that thing to introduce it. It occurs to me that when you start presentations, you should make lots of loud noises, because no one's really paying attention until you do that. People tend to be looking at their phones and stuff. It's terrible nowadays, I tell you. Technology, right? What do we mean by technology? What does all that stuff I just showed you mean? I think when we use the word technology nowadays, we have a very specific definition, an unspoken human definition that we are deploying. It is best described, in my opinion, by this chap, Bran Ferrin, who was the president and research director of the Imagineering department at Walt Disney. Are you familiar with the Imagineering department at Walt Disney? You are. Anyone not? Yes, you are. Excellent. It's cool, isn't it? It's like R&D for Disney. It's where geniuses like Danny Hillis, who basically invented modern computing in some aspects, go to design rides, I guess. Anyway, that isn't the point. So Bran Ferrin, right, he's really smart. He used to run the Imagineering department, and now he's the special advisor to the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States, the country and the army and stuff, right? So it's important to understand what he thinks. And he said, and this is the fear section of the talk, so if you're frightened, now is a good time to feel that. He said what technology is, what we mean when we use the word technology is specifically stuff that doesn't work yet. That's what we're talking about. Because once it works, it stops being technology. Bear with me, this is important. Things that are in the world when you are born are stuff. I like Gavin to talk about stuff. Stuff is a good word. Things that come into the world when you're a teenager are exciting stuff, and things that come into the world after about 30, maybe my age 33, are scary stuff because your brain changes. I'll give you an example. People that grew up with TVs in their front room, TV is stuff. People in my parents' generation didn't have TVs. TVs encountered their living rooms when they were about sort of 15, not stuff, technology forever. See what I mean? The reason I mention this is because when we talk about technology, we're not usually talking about writing or language, are we? But writing and language is the most important technology we have thus far created for ourselves. It's utterly immersive and utterly pervasive, and therefore, because it's always been stuff to all of you, your brain doesn't really think of it as all the robots and satellites and widgets and stuff that doesn't work yet. But it's super important. It's fundamentally massively important. It's the only technology platform we've invented thus far that we use inside the operations of our own mind. It's a tool that our brains use to think with. To me, that's the best definition of technology I can think of. It's internalized technology. We are no longer the same. In Lacanian terms, we have split from our other because we have words in our mind. Now, technology, the whole point of this talk, this presentation, this conference, this day, was creative and unexpected uses of technology, right? So what was writing invented for? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? So, as far as we understand it, and you all know this, you're just being shy because it's late in the day and I talk too fast in a funny accent. I know. It's okay. As far as we know, the last or first recorded writing that we understand is called cuneiform. It was invented, we think, in Mesopotamia about 3,500 BC, and it was designed to do inventory management. That's what writing is for. That's why we have language. Because if you have stuff, you want to keep track of the stuff. And then you can tax people on the money they've got, and you can sell the stuff that you have. So inventory management was a reason, the need state that writing was created to solve. The unexpected effect of this was something else. Want to guess what this is? That was good, wasn't it? It swaps around. Anyone want to guess what this is? So, when you have a system to do inventory management, right, that's language, you've basically created a database. Now, an immediate need that's unforeseen when you do this is a way to authenticate the data. Because how can I tax you on it unless it's real? How can we all agree the data is real? So the first accidental deployment of writing as a technology was in the creation of signatures. Signatures are identification technology. They are a stamp, a totem. They make the data beholden to somebody or something. They're a trust mark. In ancient Mesopotamia, they didn't do writing. They did clay tablets with little sticks, hence the cuneiform thing. So their signatures were these seals. So you'd roll the seal, a unique carving, on the clay thing, and you'd have a signature. It would be authenticated. The data would be robust. And really hard to fake, because things when they're round in a circle look different when they're on a flat. You get the idea, right? So that was the first identity technology we created as a parallel, as a function of writing. And then about 5,000 years passed, and we still do it, basically, in this Hancock form, which you call the John Hancock signatures. We don't use seals anymore, we use handwriting. That's an identity technology. It's an authentication system. It proves you are you. It is in some aspect a metonym. It's a metaphor made up of a smaller part of yourself that represents the larger part of yourself. Technology, as I said, as we commonly talk about it, tends to accelerate. One of the defining characteristics of our modern age is this sense of endless acceleration driven by the exponentiation of Moore's law. But other things don't change as fast. Oh, by the way, I like this tweet. I saw it when I was preparing this talk. Practicing your signature over and over again in case you become famous. Now, it's interesting to me. An autograph is not the same thing as a signature. Technically, an autograph is something written in your own hand. Graph, auto, self, graph, writing. But an autograph, legally speaking, is a drawing of your signature, an artistic impression of your signature, not legally binding on documents. Signatures are, because they denote presence and they denote intent. Autographs do not. Important distinction. So you can't go up to a celebrity, get them to do an autograph with a folded up contract and go, ta-da, I now have your money. That doesn't work, you see. It doesn't count. Okay, so in 5,500 years of technology of writing being the first and most important technology we've ever had, signatures remain the identity system we use, which is a bit weird. Credit cards in this country, and all countries actually, are not valid unless signed, hence the name of this talk. The signature makes the card valid. When you put through a credit card transaction, you have to sign a bit of paper. That's really odd to me, but we still have to do that. These idiosyncrasies of the American banking are not exactly like you still use checks here, which aren't really used that much anywhere else. But the signature thing is interesting because the signature is the same exact function, identity authentication, that it used to have 5,500 years ago. Except, and this is really interesting, I think, you know when credit card, in shops, the credit card person asks you for ID sometimes to show with your credit card? They're not technically allowed to do that. By the agreement they have with Visa and MasterCard, your ID, your signature, is the only identification you need to use a credit card. The signature is your identification. So, when I got to America about a few years ago, I noticed something very particular about the way transactions work in this country. The function of the signature is an anti-fraud mechanism. It's designed, you sign the card, you sign the paper, and the teller compares the two, and when they look similar, the transaction is approved. That is the legally required process for making credit card transactions, technically above $25 now, but used to be all transactions. No one in America does that, ever. It's weird. They give you your card back, then you sign. Have you noticed this? Are you familiar with this behavior? See, you're nodding. You can hear me. That's good. Everyone else, do you agree with my conceit that people give you the card back first and then you sign? Wow, such energy in the room. It's so stimulating. So it occurs to me that that's weird. And so one of the things we did to think about how weird it was, set up a little art project called the Signature Project, whereby when I buy things, I sign gibberish. All kinds of random, non-my-name gibberish that is not my signature, is not on my card, and is therefore entirely invalid as a way to denote my authority, identity, and presence. None of these transactions, therefore, are legally binding, and therefore, if I chose to, I'd go back to the credit company and go, I didn't make any of these signatures. Please give me back all the money I've spent. Because I do it for everything. So I do little drawings. That's clearly not my signature. No one's ever asked me once. When Prince Harry was getting married, I started signing my name Harry for a while. That was quite good. I enjoyed that. When I go for brunch, sometimes I use the word brunch as my signature, or brunchy in this case. Brunchy is good. New York being very important, brunch being very important in New York, there's a lot of brunch ones on the blog. Dozens and dozens, in fact. Because I'm not very inspired creatively as a person, am I? This is my little tribute to Jonathan Harris's We Feel Fine project. We Feel Fine. I've had some steak, apparently, and I wrote the word steak in stylized graffiti, sort of gibberish. That's nice. This is when I went to Sweden. It says Sweden on it. You're getting a theme here, aren't you? How literal I am in my expressions. Good, excellent. Food, very generic food here. The hard thing about this is I have to go through every single credit card receipt before I put it up on the internet to check my full credit card numbers not on the receipt, because sometimes they do that. My brother was on there.
When you sign that food, did the waitress say, and
No one ever says anything. It's not just that I sign it, I take a photo of myself having signed it, and they say, no one even asks what I'm doing. I have to keep going. This is my very affirmative statement. Yes. This one is a smiley face. So you get the idea, right? I've been doing this for like a year. No one's ever stopped me, ever questioned me. My identity clearly is very fluid in this aspect, which is probably not right. Identity, I have often believed, is contextually fluid in the way it is expressed behaviorally by human beings. When I am here, I act differently than I would do than if I was at a funeral, and that is appropriate because my behavior is contextually modified and identity is fluid enough to respond to that. When the web began to fracture itself away from the idea of destinations to distribution and aggregation, I began to think that maybe my identity was distributed across digital spaces, that across different parts of the internet, bits of me would be splayed and bits of me would be contextually appropriate. So the bits of me that were pictures would be on Flickr and the bits of me that were music would be on Last.fm or on MySpace or whatever. So I had this thought that identity was distributed, right? And then Connect with Facebook happened. And I realized that Connect with Facebook is like a signature. In fact, it's like a really special kind of signature because it brings all these distributed bits along with you. Not just the name and identity, there's all other stuff around you. And more specifically, and the bit that I didn't think of, is that it brings everyone you know with you too. This is the social graph concept. And in Facebook's conception of the social graph, you are a node on the graph connected to many other nodes that are interconnected, usually in quite dense groups, because that's how friendship groups tend to work, right? Wow. So I was like, am I a node on the graph? I don't know. One of the things that people have been speaking about today is the economic effects of internet-like systems. Airbnb is a really good one, right? Perfect information and free replication and distribution allows for the leveraging of economic surplus that was otherwise impossible to use, i.e. my living room. This is our listing on Airbnb. That's me, that's Rosie, that's our kitchen. So we wanted to rent out our living room on Airbnb because rent in Manhattan's really expensive. And when I came to New York, I was like, I gotta live in Manhattan because, you know, it's got the big buildings and it looks like being in a film and everything. So we were doing this thing and we listed it. Well, I say we. Rosie did the listing part. And we were looking at it and I became incredibly uncomfortable. Incredibly uncomfortable. And I realized I was under conflict between two sides of myself. One that fundamentally believes human beings are good and pleasant and kind and generous, and one who has tried to sell in-box mobile phones on eBay and been endlessly harassed by apparently Nigerian princes. And I don't like it, and it makes me super stressed that I'm having this conflict because humanity is fundamentally good, but if you believe that, the people who aren't take advantage of it and mess up your stuff. And I'm like, I need a way to trust people that's brokering their identity. I need a way that I can feel comfortable to let random people into my apartment and let them stay there for money. And I realized this was the answer, right? Because individually, I don't know who you are. And it doesn't matter who you are individually, it's irrelevant fundamentally, because your name, unless I have heard of you, means nothing to me, and proving to me that I know that you are who you say you are is irrelevant to build trust, because I need reputation, I need connection, I need the right to complain, I need to know where you work and who your friends are. And so we have that. With LinkedIn and Facebook, I can not just see the pictures of your family, which are irrelevant, I can see everyone you know and where you work. And so it's super unlikely you're going to mess with my stuff, because I'll get you fired, basically. So what I realized potentially is that maybe we're not a node on the social graph. Maybe our identity is a networked idea, that our identity is fundamentally an aspect of the people we are connected to, that you are literally who you know. So that was kind of the idea. And we had these guys come and stay, these two really lovely guys from Cincinnati. And they had a wedding in town, I went to some shows. They seemed really excited about being in the city, and we kind of had a few drinks with them, and Rosie gave them some suggestions, and I tried to ignore them. And they were lovely. They were just insanely nice people who were polite and clean and go out of our way, and just good guests to have that also pay you money, which was cool. And just a couple of days ago, I got this in the mail, which I really wasn't expecting. It's a thank you note from our Airbnb guests. I've never sent a thank you note to a hotel before. But they sent me a thank you. I sent us a thank you note. Actually, more Rosie than me, as you can tell. It's not really, I'm just like afterthought. It's fine. They sent a thank you note, and I guess that was an unexpected consequence of Airbnb, was sort of making, I guess, friends. That's not what I intended it for, but that's kind of how it seems to have worked out. And I guess that brings us back down to signatures, because without the signature, handwritten notes don't work. Thanks.